This week, I want to show you a project that I already mentioned last week. Since this was the first project that I ever shared with you 6 months ago, I think it's the perfect way to start my content on YouTube. I'm talking about the wooden model that we did of the south tip of Manhattan at uni. We received an AutoCAD file from a professor so that we had all the data we needed. So for the buildings, heights, roads, green spaces. And those are in all the layers that I'm opening right now. The buildings were color-coded according to their height for orientation. So yellow is buildings over 200 meters, green over 150s, and so on. First step was the building of the elevation model out of thin wooden sheets. One contour line marks the height difference of 6 meters, so that we had the plane to place all the buildings on. Second step took loads longer, so we printed the layout plan from the AutoCAD file, used it as orientation, and also checked off all buildings by writing, or finished buildings by writing our initials and numbers into the field of that building. This is our wooden stash towards the end of the build. Remember playing with Legos? Sometimes it was just as frustrating trying to find the right piece. So we would pick the wood and cut it into the right sizes. Here I filmed myself working on one building right next to ground zero. The building had a core piece of wood and all the other details were added in layers. So here I am putting on the very first layer. Every layer was then grinded down to the right thickness on the bench grinder in the background, and as you'll be able to tell, it had quite a few layers. Every layer had to be cleaned of excess glue and had to be perfectly sanded down because once the next layer was attached, you couldn't touch the one underneath anymore without leaving marks that looked really ugly. So that's why you see myself cleaning the piece so often and so meticulously. This is the finished building, or this is the finished tower, and now I have to attach all the small pieces of this building complex together. And the tricky thing with those many components is managing to grind exact angles so that every piece of wood fits together perfectly. And yep, that inspired some tantrums and frustrations, I'm telling you. Other than that, the whole project was very meditative, really. Oh, and those roundy bits, I had a friend of mine do those because no, I was not going to do those. So next, I attached the building to the actual model. This was the very last building added, so everything around it is already finished. And in front, you can see the 2 waterfalls on ground zero, those 2 rectangle holes. And on the right is the One World Trade Center. Here you see with what technique we attached the buildings to the model. So we printed out the layout plan once more and cut out all the buildings so that we had something like a stencil to know what building goes where. Then the third step was filling in parks and roadside planting, which was a lot of fun. We overlaid a picture from Google Maps with a layout plan so that we could see where trees are, everything that basically is big enough to be shown in our model. We also had to attach other bits and bobs like ACs and water tanks, etc. on top of all the skyscrapers and buildings. And to be perfectly honest, those were the details that made all the difference to make the model kind of look more lively, look more interesting. And then we had to clean everything up. And there is the finished product. The finished model is made of beech wood. It's at a scale at 1 to 1,000 meters and in total required about 400 work hours from me and my 4 co-workers. I also want to thank the boyfriend of one of my coworkers who did these amazing Photoshop magic type of pictures of our model. So thanks. Of course, right after we finished, we had to play around a little bit, taking lots of pictures and inserting Godzilla. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more, please subscribe and stay tuned.